What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Some very interesting news. I want to give you the updates, then I will give you the Ego thoughts on this news. So, it looks like Danny Swift Garcia was forced to relinquish his WBC belt, the green belt, and that is at 140 pounds. Reason being is he hasn't defended the belt in so many fights, and like I reported, he's going to be facing Paulie Malignaggi at the Barclays August 1st. So the WBC had to have that tough conversation with the Garcia camp, and basically they're not going to allow you to keep fighting. Like, there's certain rules to being a champion and to having that bit of hardware, and you can't keep fighting non-title fights as champion when you're healthy, fighting the fights you want to fight without defending against the mandatory. Now, Danny Garcia, his mandatory for a minute has been Victor Postal. Now, he paid a six-figure sum, his camp, or however that works, to Victor Postal to step aside, right? And they also gave him a slot on the Garcia versus Peterson undercard. So basically, he was the mandatory, meaning Danny Garcia as champion, the mandatory challenger was Victor Postal, so he should have fought him if he was healthy. But in order to make Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson, they paid him a six-figure sum, said, hey, step aside, even though you're the mandatory, we'll let you fight on the undercard, and, you get to showcase your thing and get a paycheck from that, and fight in the future. But now, if he's moving up to fight Paulie Malignaggi, and he's relinquishing the belt, it doesn't look like that fight will ever happen. So my thoughts on this, I think it's great. I think it's great for a few reasons. Danny Garcia is a high-profile type of boxer. He has a bit of celebrity, and a lot of times with the organizations and the sanctioning bodies, they don't enforce on the big dogs, on the A sides of the equation. And at 140, I would say Danny Garcia is the A side, meaning at 140, he has a bigger name than probably Terrence Crawford, Lucas Matisse. And I'm not talking about who you like, because a lot of people like Matisse. He's kind of like a cult classic. I'm talking about in terms of if you were to put them on a popularity contest in terms of look at their brand, you know what I'm saying? Like his Twitter account, his Instagram account, how many televised performances he has, things like that. So I'm not talking, I know some people are going to get emotional and be like, oh, Lucas is better and this and that. It's not about that. I'm just talking about brand-wise. Danny Garcia is the A side, and he's probably the biggest star at 140 that currently fights at 140 and has been fighting at 140. So I think it's a good look because, if you're not going to go within the rules and you're not going to fight Victor Postal, then let these other dudes fight for that belt. You know what I'm saying? And this is the other reason it's a good, because this, with Danny Garcia moving up to face Paulie Malignaggi, it opens the floodgate for his other belts too, since he's the lineal middleweight champion. He's probably going to end up relinquishing them all if I had to speculate. And now the WBC ordered Lucas Matisse versus Victor Postal, which is another good fight. Another thing that I like about this whole turn of events is this. In the public's eyes, most people, including myself, think he lost at least one of his last three fights, at least. And there's some people that say he lost two. Not the Rod Salka. He handled business in that fight. But again, that was a mismatch. That should have never happened to begin with, pulling up a guy with no power, etc. But versus Mauricio Herrera, I thought he lost the fight. Versus Lamont Peterson, he looked shitty in that particular fight. So technically, had those been the title fights or whatever, or had the decision not been a gift decision, he wouldn't have had the title anyway. You know what I'm saying? He would have lost to Mauricio Herrera or Lamont Peterson. That's why people call him Danny Gift Garcia. And I'm not going to go that far as doing all that. I don't do a bunch of the childish rhetoric. I might end up working with some of these guys. But I am truthful. And I think he lost at least one of those fights, right? So he wouldn't have been a champion anyway. And then he wouldn't have nothing to relinquish at that point, because he would have lost his WBC to Mauricio Herrera when he initially, in my opinion, lost that particular fight. So all in all, I think it's a good thing. He's been saying he's going to test the waters, go to welterweight. So, no time like the present. Make your move. Fight Paulie Malignaggi. Most people have this kind of black cloud and his image. I think he really should have, after Lucas Matisse, if you were struggling to make weight and different things like that, instead of getting like outboxed by Herrera and Peterson and stuff like that after the Matisse fight. When you were lineal champion, you should have made that move right then and there. But you stuck around and made it harder on yourself because nobody wants to leave a division and it feels incomplete. Like, people actually wanted him to stay at the division now to rematch one of them guys. Even Lucas Matisse, some people, they want to see that fight again at 140. Danny Garcia versus Lucas Matisse. So nobody wants to end on a low note. Everybody should want to leave a division on a high note. Like Adrian Broner, he left his division. He left lightweight on a high note before he jumped up 2 weight classes to fight at welterweight. He was looking like the man. Ricky Burns had been ducking him. He had just beat Antonio DeMarco. And it didn't look like anyone, because Terrence Crawford wasn't in the division at the time, I don't believe. It didn't look like anyone was really fucking with Broner at lightweight, you know what I'm saying? So he left on a high note. I think Danny Garcia should have done that, but I mean, it's neither here nor there. You can't really change what already transpired. But all I do know is this: in his last 3 fights, 2 of them were suspect performances, and now it's time for some fresh blood at 140. Terrence Crawford's up there. He looked good in his last fight with Delorme. Lucas Matisse is hungry to get a title shot. You got Hank Lundy, Mauricio Herrera, guys who, especially Herrera, have been on the wrong side of decisions, things like that. So I'm all for it. I think this is good for the 140-pound division. Broner Porter, we got to see the outcome. But depending on whatever happens in that fight, he might drop back down to 140 instead of the catch weight or campaigning at welterweight. So this is, to me, this is a good look. Because Danny Garcia, like I said, you can't just keep fighting whoever you want without taking care of your mandatory obligations. Let me know what you guys think of Danny Garcia being forced to relinquish. It was either relinquish or get stripped of your WBC title, which is probably the most notable, the green belt, the most notable of all the belts, I would say. Let me know what you guys think of this news. Danny Garcia will be fighting Paulie Malignaggi August 1st on ESPN with Premier Boxing Champs. How's he going to do at welterweight, and what do you think of him having to let go of that WBC belt? Make sure you like my video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, is Ego signing off.